So hello, this Saturday, we are making a feedback session of January. And we can start by sharing screen. Okay. And first, I'm opening a hibiscus reference. We have quite a few of hibiscus because it was in January. Starting here. We'll make a little bit smaller so it fits the other way, like this. Yeah. So we have a yellow hibiscus. First of all, yellow is a difficult pigment, as I mentioned, not once, many times, but here in this particular situation with this hibiscus, the red pigment is helping us to create shadow. Otherwise, to create shadow with yellow pigment is a tricky thing to do. And I think Valerie already know that after painting a sunflower. It was a tricky thing, but here the red pigment is definitely helping us. What is here? Now I'm seeing that it's the petals go a different direction, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because in your drawing, it's different. Your line drawing is different from the photo.
Oh, really? Let me check. Oh, I didn't notice that.
I tried to flip it and it's different.
No, line.
No, it is.
Line drawing is.
It is the same as the reference.
Or maybe when I did the photocopy machine flipped it.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe something happened, but that's not the main thing here. More what I'm here missing, what I can see that is missing, the red. This red transition from the very dark area here in the middle as it goes further. If, for example, if I just look at this part.
Yeah, the paper swallow it.
Yeah, if the paper is, it only means that maybe more layers you need. It happens with some papers that they absorb pigment too much. It only requires then more layers.
I used cold press paper and Strathmore cold press paper.
Yeah.
And I had sort of a hard time with that paper trying to work with the pigment.
Yeah.
And I did the veins different in the email.
Yes, you said that you did the veins differently, and
yes.
Yeah, but if the paper is absorbed, I also have a question about watercolor papers, and there's mentioned this Arches paper. It also is one of the papers that absorbs too much pigment, that you can paint layer, but after drying, it seems where the pigment is gone. It's just the paper is absorbing that too much. And it only...
That's what I'm sorry, that's why I don't like Arches. It absorbs too much.
It absorbs too much. Yeah, I was painting a long time ago, but after trying some other paper, I realized, oh my God, it's much easier. When trying with painting on Arches and then going to other paper, it seems like, wow, it's so easy. If we manage to do on Arches, then on other paper, it will be, wow, it's a few layers and it's already quite vibrant. But here, yeah, also these missing the shadow, the cast shadow. Even if the petals go other way around, it doesn't matter. Still, there should be a shadow part. For example, this petal right here, it looks like the shadow is on the petal, but not on the petal that is going underneath. So the shadow, for example, this part, the shadow is going under the petal that is going underneath. But here we have the shadow on the
On the top.
on the top. Yeah, it
Yes.
confuses. We are looking and we don't quite understand how it is going. Then yeah, it confuses the viewer when the shadows aren't placed correctly.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is like the main thing, that missing reds and missing shadows to get more realistic and more this three-dimensional. But again, yellows are super tricky, and if you were trying new paper or struggling with the paper surface, it all makes much harder and difficult to manage the result. But I think you had a very amazing experience with this, because the more even with errors and trials we learn. It doesn't matter the result unless we really take all the notes that we experienced in this particular painting practice, and we remember, we accumulate all the experience, and we are learning. That's the amazing part of trying new things, trying new surfaces. That's okay. So you know, oh, I will not be painting particular style or particular subject on that paper or this medium. You are learning. Otherwise, you will not know which will be better for you, what is working better for you. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to. I will let somebody in. Yeah.
And as I said, the veins, I did it different as you painted.
Yes.
Because when I was looking at the photo,
yeah,
the veins change colors in my eye.
Yeah.
They go from red to yellow. So I decided to scratch the surface of the paper while it was wet.
Yeah.
And put a wash of color, so it would absorb the color as I was putting to render the same thing that I was seeing. And I think.
How were you scratching? With what were you scratching?
With a thingy that you do pottery.
Oh, yeah. First, the veins that are changing the color, the veins are going from darker to lighter. They are going from more thicker veins, and then they are like gradually becoming the petal. They're not like changing the color, they're being more thick, being more darker, and then they gradually become thinner and lighter at the same time. What I did in my tutorial, I was layering those veins, and in between I'm placing washes. What that does, first, when we apply, for example, you applied here a line of vein. It is very vivid and quite crisp. Like these veins are more gradually transitioning into the surface of the petal. And how I am achieving that result is I apply once the line of the vein, then I wait for it dries, then I go over with watery wash, and it becomes more not so crisp anymore. Paper absorbs the watery wash and makes the crisp fine line of the brush stroke more subtle, and it becomes more fluffier. Then I go, after drying the watery wash, then I go again, more putting pigment on the base in the middle part and gradually making it thinner till the end. And then again, I will go with watery wash and gradually building by layers, my vein will become more more looking like it is realistic. It's not so crisp. The petal veins are very rarely so crisp like you
So
have.
it was a mistake of my part because I am making it more, more to show more every time that I put a wash on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
every time, for example, when I do a layer of fine brush strokes, those brush strokes are too vivid, too crisp, and too obvious. Then when I go with watery wash over that layer, they become more calmer. Those fine brush strokes become more calmer, and the paper together with that watery wash absorb the parts, and those brush strokes are visible, but again, not so obvious, not so crisp. And then again, we can go, but everything to do that and to get the result should be very transparent. Watery wash is super light and super transparent, and even those fine veins in the first layer are very light.
Oh,
In
okay.
order to get
What would
that
be,
result.
I'm sorry, Christine, what would be the use of scratching then the paper?
I am not the fan of scratching. Scratching can be used if you want to get maybe some, for example, you could be painting some kind of, I don't know, maybe fruit or maybe strawberry. Strawberry has little green seeds, and each little green seed has a tiny area of light. Then what that little tiny area you can scratch out. I maybe would use there, but again, I'm not a fan of scratching because it is some part of damaging the paper, and the scratching can be used in some little particular pieces to get the white visible again, because we scratch out the pigment, and yeah, like little spots, little marks on some maybe a zucchini. There's this vegetable zucchini and it has a lot of white dots. It can be possible to scratch out. Strawberry, little seeds. What else? I don't know.
So I can use it more for like an architectural drawing instead of botanical.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like you did. I'm not quite sure that was a good idea, but again, by trying and experimenting, maybe you will find a solution for some particular technique or area.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Thank
I'm not a fan of scratching.
I learned.
Yeah. So again, very nice that you left the stem and middle part light and you painted it later. Maybe you could add it here a little bit darkness, like here and here. You see in the reference, I will zoom it closer. Between those little things, little stamens and anthers, behind there is the darkness. Here darker, here darker. So you can also again separate, not with a line, but with the darkness.
Yes.
I know it's tempting to draw a line to separate things, but better to do it with the shadow area. And we have a very obvious shadow, which is darker, and adding here a little bit of darkness will make these little stamens pop up because you are adding darkness around them. You are not just outlining them, but you are adding darkness. Okay?
Yes.
Let's see the next one.
Oh, that's pretty.
Okay. More red. Here is the red is added much more and more obvious. And I would recommend very carefully next time, look how are the petal veins going. Here the whole flower, it looks like it is rotating. It is going, but just to look carefully, observe the reference, how the form is being built, how the veins are going, or some stripes or whatever. Everything, we have all the information in the reference. You can pause the tutorial anytime and take a careful look in there. I would even recommend, before even starting the tutorial, if you choose, for example, one of my tutorials or any other tutor tutorials, or you find a reference, before starting to paint, really look into the reference, really study it, take a notes, what you see first, what catches your attention. That means that will go the last to paint, because that is the first thing that gets our attention, and that is almost always the last thing that we are painting. And take a look what you see behind those beautiful details. Write down the pigments that you will you want, or you see you will be using. And after that, you can start looking at the tutorial and see if you are guessing with the pigments, or you have made your own mixes, but very similar to the reference, and that is completely okay. So before even starting, really study the reference. And after starting and while you are painting, still you need to constantly check the reference. That is the key to realistic painting, like really study the reference. That is crucial. And here the mistake, a little mistake with these veins, is just not paying too attention to the details in the reference.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I see. Yes.
Yeah, this is just like I'm telling this, constant reminding that constantly, the more we look in the reference, the more we start to see. And that is, for me, it is like that. It's for everyone. Yeah, that is how our eyes are working. First we see, oh, beautiful flower. Then we see, oh, it's yellow. Oh, no, it's even yellow and red. And the more we look, the more we start to see. Yeah. Then you lost some light over here. We can see that the yellow is going, and in my tutorial I was constantly adding that darker yellow pigment, starting from the shadow area, starting from here, and then gradually smoothing it towards the other side, and leaving this little, like you left here, and then you lost it here, here, and here. But this yellow little part was everywhere.
Yeah, I put too much red on. I got carried away with the red.
You could get even more in some areas carried away with the red, but leave the rest part yellow. It doesn't matter how, but as long as we are leaving the light area light, we can build contrast even more, but it's important to leave that lighter area light.
Yes, that's what I see that.
Yeah, really nicely done the middle part, and you done the shadow area behind and painted around those little stamens. Wonderful, great. Also, I like the subtle transition from the very darker to the slightly lighter, and then to get to the yellows. Yeah, everything else is done good, except you could be more careful with the veins, and don't lose the lighter parts, like these little edges, which are making this flower more realistic. Yeah. But nicely done. This is really tricky. It looks like simple, but there are some tricky parts.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, let's move forward. I have an acorn. Come on, move here. And the student wrote that she had a problem with the upper part. And what I can see that more careful, again, observation of the reference and more careful work with the very tip of the brush. It is like crucial to get the little details. For example, here is the middle part. And then with little brush strokes, little tiny brush strokes, we are creating the depth of this area. For example, let's check. This one here, darker here, and here around that very middle part, there is this shadow area because there it goes inside and then comes out. So we are creating shadow to see the different tonal values of one particular piece, then going to another one. And again, there's the middle part and little brush strokes to create shadow and create this three-dimensional look. Here I can see that student added dots in the middle and then those separating lines, and that's it. But we need to add more shadow, and it will instantly look more three-dimensional. With the body of the acorn, went too dark with two saturated watercolor mixes. And I know it's tempting, go straight away, but it's more important to gradually build layers, gradually build the contrast. And when we are doing that gradually, we are not losing the light area. This part should be much lighter, and this part went a little bit too dark. A little bit too dark. Here I can see clearly that this part is light and this is light. Here she left light, but again, this part could be much lighter. But this is a nice study. I think she learned a lot by just doing and trying and experimenting, and that's important here. We are not aiming for perfect results. We are here to learn and to, with each new tutorial, gain something new from it. I'm not here expecting like you are doing a masterpiece. When you will do a masterpiece, then you will go and paint on your own. But to learn, and with each new tutorial, try to see something and gain something more from it. And also this part here, it's too dark. It's too dark. We are in realistic watercolor painting, it's not few layers and it is done. It is more like more layers, more transitions, more transparent layers, and it starts to build more richer painting. The more layers we are achieving, the more richer the painting will look. And with smaller amount of layers, it can look too dark, a little bit flat, and that's it. But I like the study of the cylinder, of the stem. It's a very good thing to practice simple details. And I had from Valerie a suggestion of making a very simple tutorials on different pieces from some references, and I think that's a very good idea that I will be doing. For example, how to make two leaves overlapping each other and just to paint the section where they are overlapping and show how to separate them with and making these simple practices, not a complete big composition, will help you enormously. So don't straight away aim for big and very complex composition. Do more simpler practice and you will benefit from it in a longer run. Okay, let's move forward. Oh, then I had a questions about paper. So I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on contrast between using this. I think that my paper is Saunders Waterford 640 GSM, and then my sketchbook paper and Arches. So again, about the Arches, as I already mentioned, it is good paper, very old paper. Quite a few good botanical artists are painting only on Arches. My first tutor back in 2016 was painting on arches, and I started painting on arches, this French botanical painter, Vincent Jeanneret, and he does amazing work on arches, but he also agrees, and he's saying that it is quite difficult paper. It absorbs too much pigment. The surface is slightly hairy. There are those hairy particles, and it makes some part of painting a little bit different and maybe not so easy. But again, that paper gives a very interesting result, but it is a difficult paper. About Saunders Waterford that I am painting 640 GSM. It is also good with 400 GSM and 300 GSM. Why I'm painting on 600? Because I like the thickness of the paper and it absorbs so much of watery layers, and I'm not worrying about that paper will buckle or something will happen with it. And for example, I don't have it here. This big Christmas painting that we were painting in December and January, I almost finished it and I left it somewhere safe, but something happened and the tea dropped on that big Christmas painting and I got big marks of tea on the paper. And as my paper is 600 grams, I wasn't worried about that, and the marks were quite big along all the way of the paper and the painting, and I wasn't too shocked by that. And as I had a very thick paper, I picked this magic sponge and I erased those tea marks, and the paper managed to handle my erasing, and I did it in quite a few times. I did once with magic sponge, erased those marks, then I waited for the paper to dry, then I went again, and I think I did like 3 times, and like 95% of those marks went away. But it only thanks that the paper is so thick. For example, if that would be 300 GSM paper, it wouldn't handle the correction of the mistakes. It can handle only a slight manipulation of the paper. And about my sketchbook paper, it is good quality 300 GSM paper for quick studies, for little paintings, as we did this challenge, and for studies like, for example, this acorn or this hibiscus. For bigger projects, more complex references, I would go with more thicker paper. And with also with painting, when you need to really layer a lot of layers, make detailing, and I would also choose a thicker paper. But 400 is also a very good choice to make more complex paintings, more saturated paintings. 300 is a go-to almost any beginner, any study, any little paintings. I painted on 300 GSM paper for a very long time, and only last few years I'm using 600 because I just like the thickness, that I can place it upwards and not worry that it will be damaged or bended or something like that. Okay, let's move forward. We have a peony. We have a peony, and yep. So very nice addition of the background. And it gives, the background is dark, but it really contrasts with the peony, and the peony is really popping out of the paper. I really like the white line that is left around the edge. It's really beautiful. What we can add? I would say that some shadow parts are missing. For example, this area behind the stem could be darker. We can see here, and also this place can be dark. If the darkness will be added, because shadows still can be added, it's problem if there would be problem with light. But if the problem is less amount of shadow, we can always add that. And here, if she will add more shadow, it will create more contrast to the lighter parts, and it will even become more realistic. Also, looking here, this petal right over here also needs a little bit more shadow. And this area also, the reflected light area over here, when the shadow will be added here, will be too light. It almost is in the same tonal value as the light area, but it shouldn't be that light. We see here that there are a reflected light area, but still they are not so bright as the lightest parts over here. And reflected light area is always slightly darker than the lightest parts, but lighter than the shadow. So more shadow, more contrast is required. Otherwise, it's very beautiful, very bright. The background gives this super brightness. And when the background was applied, I would slightly correct the stem. For example, this one, this right here over area could be a little bit more precise when we are adding some background or shadow. We can correct the areas that are lighter. Very nice brush strokes, fine brush strokes all around on these lighter parts. And about the lighter parts, they are very good, but I would leave them a little bit more bigger, more wider, like in the reference. Here is a quite a big amount of light. And here maybe that very line looks like a line, but other parts could be more lighter, but still I like the effect how it looks, this one. It's very beautiful. I would add more shadow. Shadow is the main thing that is missing here. This part over behind the stem, these areas. Yeah, let's move it a little bit dark. These areas are missing shadow. This one, a little bit here. And yeah, and that's it. But beautiful. It reminds me of summer, even in this wintry time. Let's move on to this one. Calla Lily. Come on. Oh, that's moving. Okay. First, let's say, very beautiful. I like these blues and different. That's what I'm saying. The more colors we are adding to color tones to our paintings, the painting will only benefit. And I can see from this one over here, there are so many different color tones, but they are in the frame of this, in the zone of this subject. But still, the more color tones we are adding, the more interesting the painting becomes. You won't just look and see, oh, there are some blues and pinks and slightly violets, and yeah, then they go here. Beautiful, beautiful. The more we add color tones, the better. Of course, we're not like adding all color tones that is possible. We are looking at the subject and we see that there are different violets, there are different greens, and there are different yellows. So we can add those different color tones in order to make the painting more richer more beautiful. Stem is missing shadow. As always, stem is left like the last piece and done in a very, I'm speaking like from my own experience. When I was painting, the stem is always left till the end, and then we just want to rush things and finish faster. Oh, come on, let's do the stem quicker. But as a reminder, spend as much attention to the stem as you do for the main flower, because it is also in the painting and it's not like some kind of secondary piece. It's still in the same attention as the main thing. A little bit lost, I think, light here, but still it's very contrasty good with the rest of it. I like it's very detailed. These lines maybe could be a little bit darker because they are in the shadow, and I would separate this area. It all comes together as one surface, but we see from the reference that this is the like main closer to us part, and then this part of the petal is a little bit further. But here in the painting, they are in tonal values, they look the same. Here started very good with the darkness. It can go a little bit here also darker. And then this part can be darker in order to make this one visually looking lighter. So if we add contrast, instantly the other part will look lighter because this one becomes darker. So this area could be separated a little bit more. Here I would also add a little bit darkness to make it, because it is curved and creates the shadow area. So in order to make this even more brighter, adding contrast right over here will give a nice touch. Otherwise it's very beautiful. Oh, come on. Yeah. Yes, and the tip.
Thank you, Christine.
Oh, welcome. This is yours.
It was mine.
Yeah. It's I'm just looking and seeing. Yeah, it's super deep. I like the details right over here. And this part right here on the left is done excellent, because those different color tones and little details, amazing. Then you miss something here.
Yes, I noticed that. There's not enough contrast between the...
Yeah. A
black.
little bit more contrast will make the thing. Yeah.
I really didn't know how to succeed to get more contrast between the front and the back. But
yeah,
now you say put some more,
here.
make this part a little darker.
Yeah, this part a little bit darker. Yeah.
I was not sure if it was allowed because the color in the picture is not that dark, and I thought I have to keep the same colors.
This part could be lighter, but as it is now like it is, then a little bit more darkness right over here could get things done and more contrasty. Also,
Yes.
Also right over here, it is too light. If I compare, let me zoom in, and I will zoom in this one. It's also, I'm suggesting always, when you are painting and struggling for something, take a photo of your work, put it on a phone. There are many apps where you can put together two pictures and then put a reference and your painting in that time, put them right beside, and you will start to look and notice what you need to add more or where you need to stop and don't add anything else. And now right here we see that this part is darker and you have it much lighter.
Oh.
Yeah, this can...
It could be darker though. Oh,
yeah,
okay. I don't see that.
That's okay. That comes with practice.
Yeah, probably. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that way, if you will add darkness right over here, it will instantly go a little bit away, and because it is in the shadow. This area right over here, it is in the shadow.
Yes.
So if we are adding there a little bit more darkness, it will go a little bit away from the viewer. Yeah, and these veins could go a little bit more calmer.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, this part, don't touch it, only this little area right over here, a little bit shadow right over here and right over here. Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Then I have this one and the reference. Maria, this is yours, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so first, we got it about the paper. It's not making smaller.
It's no paper. It's
Yeah,
it's a
aqua board.
aqua board.
Yeah. First, about the composition, you cut out some part of the.
That was my intention.
Yeah, but when you are about the composition, there are some things. Why are they like they are? For example, this dahlia flower and the background, and there are these compositions when part of the subject is going out of the paper, and there are some rules. It can be only maybe the middle part, all in the middle, and then everything goes out. But
Oh,
here, it is intentionally left this part right here that is in all the petals are in the frame. So it in your that you cut out some part of this left side. It's almost like you shouldn't cut it off, maybe even like here, and paint only maybe, let's move it right.
I should have then made the drawing a little bit smaller.
Like this, look, you could done it like this.
Okay.
Or even like this. It would look much better, more effective. When you are, yeah, you need to think before like even transferring how it will look. Will these changes benefit the whole painting? And right over here, it looks like the background and these petals doesn't make quite sense why they are like they are. It looks like it's something missing here.
Okay.
But yeah, again, that is coming with experience and with trials and errors, and then we see what can go. Again, you tested new surface. That is always.
Yes, and I was trying because I wanted to paint that for my living room, and I had that board, and I did it small. To send to my husband, and he didn't like it. He wants something more colorful. Well, he liked it, but he wants something more colorful.
Yeah. And as I already told you in our conversation, that be careful with putting darker marks. Be really careful, because when we place something really dark in the beginning, then it seems like, again, I'm talking from my own experience, it seems like all the rest of the painting process, I will be competing with that little darker mark and trying to get everything else quite similar to that darker line, because I'm constantly will be thinking, oh, it's not dark enough, it's not dark enough, the rest of it. And then I will go more and more and will think all the time about this little dark space or area that I painted. But if you go gradually from the very beginning. Then at the end, you have the room, the place to go even darker, even more, get more contrast to some specific areas. And I always leave the, now, not when I was painting before, I was also doing the darker parts much faster and then trying to build everything towards the darkness. But now I add those, putting those last contrasty pieces at the very end, because I have the whole picture, I have the whole painting, and then I can see, oh, I need a contrast right over there, or I need a contrast maybe on those little details. Or also when I'm adding contrast at the very end, what I'm doing, I'm correcting some areas. For example, right over here, when you will be adding details, you can correct petals. You are adding darkness, and at the same time you are correcting the lighter parts, the edges. Let's see.
Yes. But since yeah, and I was my first time using that
Yeah,
board,
that is tricky.
and every time that I applied pigment, I was taking off pigment and it was driving me nuts.
Did you wait it for the surface to dry?
No.
That's yeah, that's also could be a problem. Yeah. Then it should be weighted when it's complete. Then while you are waiting for some area to dry, you can paint the other petals. And when you are placing darkness, for example, here is this petal dark, you can correct this edge of this petal. But if you already in the beginning placed here a darker mark, you can't go even darker. That means you will not be able to correct some areas. So be
Yes.
very careful with going too dark too fast.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, now let's check from our Facebook community. We have there some works. First, I wanted to say about the reference when we are taking picture. I have from this month, this one, and I think this one also. So when we are taking picture, we have a surface. We have a surface of our painting. I will show you on the full screen. So I have a painting on my table straight, and I'm putting phone right above the work, not like this, but like this. And then we are taking picture. Then I can clearly see the right position of the painting. When we are taking picture from the side, then everything will look more longer, more not in the right, I don't know how to say, view, not in the right view as it is in real life. The
Perspective.
phone, not in the right perspective. Yeah, when we are taking picture like this, then everything will look longer. But I am asking that I can see how it is all done. You place on the table. Don't put it, or if you are putting on the angle, then also you are placing the phone on the same angle. When we are moving, we are also moving the phone, okay? Then everything will look as it is in real life. Here I can see that it was taken from the angle, and I don't quite see, and also the surrounding area, we don't need that. Just take a picture of the painting. And right over here, this petal is done very beautifully, but it is taken in the shadow. Look, the surface right over here is light, but the painting is in the shadow, and I can't quite see. I can see that it is beautiful from the distance, but I can't see the details. And here it is, yeah, taken a little bit from the angle. It could be just right above the work and it would be amazing. But this is a super detailed. I like it. Very beautiful. Here was student said that she was, I can move it a little. So I couldn't quite get the vibrant purples. I think I had too much red pink. Regardless, I'm happy with the outcome. So about the red, pink, and vibrant purples, when we are mixing, for example, ultramarine blue or any blue color with red, it can get quite dull and quite dark. If we will mix blue with pink, it will be more vibrant. Of course, it depends on the color tone you want to get, because we can mix blue with red and we can get very similar to Perylene Violet, which is quite dark and not so vibrant color. And if we want to get more purple that is vibrant, I would recommend mixing blue with pink and then adjusting pigment ratio to get the required color. We can add a little bit of red, but be very careful. Reds can instantly make something quite dull and dark. For example, if we are mixing green, for example, blue with yellow, we will get green. And if we will add a little bit of red, then it will become earthy green, very beautiful. But if we add too much red, it will become brown and dull and not so beautiful anymore. But if we need for, I don't know, autumn leaves or some subjects that needs this color, then it's good. But with red, be very careful. Add it gradually, carefully, slowly, until you need and see the required result. Here, this big Christmas painting that we were doing, I wanted to say about the green parts. For example, right over here in this mix, I can say that red could do a very nice addition to this green mix. This green right over here is too toxic green. It's not earthy green. And to get more earthy green, we need to add a little bit of red. For example, we are mixing ultramarine blue with lemon yellow. We will get instantly a green mix, but it can be too bright and not so earthy, not so natural. And then a little touch of red, but a very teeny tiny touch of red will make instantly it much more earthier, more natural. And also about the color of Amaryllis and Alstroemeria, as I mentioned in my tutorial, I was trying to do it to make them look different by adding more pink into Alstroemeria. For now, in this particular painting, everything is done good, but as the color tone looks almost the same, they all mixed up and look like it's part of Amaryllis. These Alstroemeria don't stand out. In order to make them a little bit more different, I try to make different color tone, slightly different, but keep in the same zone. And also these Alstroemerias in the color tone are almost the same, but this one right over here had a darker areas. This one over here also had some darker areas. This one was lighter. So be very careful with painting and forgetting about tonal values. This right here, a very beautiful iris. And what I wanted to tell about this one, yeah, be more careful with the stem, but very nice. The stem is kept thin. This is good. It's very beautiful. And also some areas, I can't make here a little closer view, but more think about separating petals. For example, this area right over here is missing a separation. The shadow of this part, it could be a little bit darker and more crisper edges. Right over here, it becomes smooth but it should be more crisper in order to separate and make this petal more crisp and more obvious, where it starts, where it begins, where it ends. And other way, I really like how it looks. I think I haven't opened the reference. This part, the yellow parts can be a little bit darker because they're underneath, but it's beautiful. The movement of the iris is kept as it is, and it's beautiful. Here we have a tangerine. I don't know the right word. Okay, we have a mandarin. I think it's just the beginning stage of painting. There are some things that can be added more. First, about the shadows. When we are adding shadow on the surface where standing the subject, I would recommend do that at the very end when the painting is finished. And shadow starts darker at the beginning where the subject is touching the surface. It is the darkest area of the shadow. In the painting, we can see clearly that all the shadow is going, it only changes lighter at the very end, but it should be darker and it gradually becomes lighter. We can see here, it's the darkest and then it slowly, gradually becomes lighter. Also here it is, yeah, but here it's not quite visible. There are some other leaf that hasn't been painted here. And I like the surface of the mandarin, all those little details, because it is the skin is super with lots of stuff and little bumps and curves. And here she captured very nicely. I like it. Also about the lighter parts, the shiny parts on the leaf. It shouldn't be so crisp. The section where ends the light area and begins the darker area, it shouldn't be so crisp. There are some more gradual transitions from the very shiny area to the greener part. Here they seem more like holes, not like lighter parts. It's only because more work and bigger areas should be left in the beginning, and then gradually with layers they become smaller. What else? Yeah, this particular area right over here could be darker. Yeah, it's all in the details, but the mandarin is done good. I like it how it is done. It's also a very, very complex painting. We have another painting of Big Christmas. Painting again. What got my attention here is I will open the reference. Pay more attention to the details. Here, veins, they go all the way, almost straight to the edge, but they go on the form, how the petal is placed and how it is growing. The veins are going in the same direction. They're not going straight to the edge, but they are going to the center, because veins are coming from the center to the edge lines of the petals. That's how veins are going. They're growing from the base of the flower, from the center, and then they going to the edges of the petals. Here, we lost the direction of the veins. And lost a little bit of light over here. It looks all the way, this petal in the same tonal value, but we can see in the reference that the base, it's much darker, and then it is very light. Yeah, otherwise I like the greens. Evergreens are done good, very good. And Alstroemerius as well. Maybe a little bit more darkness in the center to make it more three-dimensional. This right over here, more contrast in the shadow areas. Be careful with outlining petals. We are not outlining, we are separating with the shadow, and we see clearly in the in the reference, there are no dark outlines around the petals. There are shadow parts. For example, I can't zoom it here. For example, this area right over here, this petal, it is just needed a darker layer on the whole surface of the petal, not outline, but the shadow area on the petal. Also right over here, don't be tempted to make an outlines. I will make this this particular issue with outlining. I will make a tutorial of watercolor tips and tricks about this outlining and how it can be avoided by adding shadow to the side where you need to make contrast, not with outlines, but with the shadows. Okay, this one over here, the alstroemeris, I think, are not quite finished yet, but greenery, evergreen also could have a little bit more layers of green color, a little bit more contrast, and to make it not just few of those needles are darker, but quite more of them. Let's have a look. For example, the middle part is much darker and could be added more greens, watercolor mixes of greens right over here. Not just a few, as I said, not just few, but more layers. No more layers to amaryllis. It's already quite saturated and quite dark. No more layers. No, yeah, that's enough. I already lost some light over here and also here. But yeah, flowers of alstroemeria and a little bit more greens to the evergreen branch. What we have here. Oh, now zoomed. Okay. Let's have a look. It's nicely done. A little bit more contrast I would add here, because now it seems like this color, this tonal value of the darker shadow area is the same color as the outer, which should be much lighter. And as we are not making something lighter, but we are adding a little bit more contrast right over here. Also, this particular area and this one could be a little bit more darker. I would add more contrast to amarylls, because now the amarylls look really good, but they kind of blend all together because of missing contrast. This light area right over here, it's too light. It really stands out, not necessarily at all. Greeneries are done good. We have different needles. Maybe the stem could be a little bit thicker, but it's better to have it thinner rather than super thick. And yeah, missing amaryllis is missing contrast. I think the main thing here. Alstroemerias are good. Yeah. Alstroemerias are good, maybe a little bit more darker this area right over here to make it go more deeper into the flower. But yeah, otherwise it's good. Okay. Do you have questions? You can unmute yourself. Maybe someone have some questions.
I have a question as far as pigments go. If you're just doing a practice and you want something that you can wipe away the easiest or the least staining, I think, do you have recommendations for like the colors that you typically use? Which ones definitely don't add to your color if you want to be able to pick it up easily? Or I feel like sometimes I have a red.
Yeah.
Like, I make some color mix and that mix it doesn't pick up at all because I must have some red that really just sinks right in instantly. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't quite get it. Sorry. Okay, so for example, give me some example.
So when you put down your base layer and then you
Yeah.
say, okay, I take a wet brush and I'm making all the light parts.
Yeah.
And you wipe those white parts out. So some
Yeah.
things go
Oh.
down to the white paper and some things just stay there. So do you have like ones to avoid or ones that are easy, just off the top of your head?
For example, I would, maybe you already noticed that in some tutorials, I apply that first layer to the whole, for example, petal, to the
Mhm.
whole petal, and then I wipe out the pigment. And some tutorials, I leave the light area unpainted and I just smooth around that lighter part. If the subject and the mix is quite dark, then I will not be painting all the light area completely away, especially if that light area is super light it looks like almost white paper. Then I will not be layering that first layer all the way to the surface. I will leave that the lightest part unpainted, because it will, if I will even be able to get out the pigment, it will still, there will be some pigment left in that area. So I would better recommend not to paint at all, but when you are painting around it, leave a bigger area white, unpainted, and smooth around that surface so it doesn't have this crisp finish between the light and the painted area.
But like say you're making a shadow and
Mhm.
you want to put down a line and then immediately you want to smooth it out, right? So it's not just this line. Some of the paints will smooth very easily, I think, and some of them are just, once you put it down, it's just stuck there. So
Then you need to go lighter.
you need to
Then
go faster.
your mixes should be lighter, so they're not, so you always have a room to add another layer.
So more light layers instead of a dark layer.
Yes, definitely. And don't maybe try, when you are adding shadow, don't try to first make a line, take a round synthetic brush and do it with the side of the brush, not with the tip of the brush, but place brush on the side and then apply this shadow part. Instantly wash the brush and smooth it again with the side of the brush, not with the tip, but with the side of the brush.
Okay.
It will gradually make it more, this gradual transition will be visible. But I will make this particular issue with this shadow and how to separate two overlapping details, and without this line, without this crisp line. And yeah, when I'm applying a shadow area, I will do that not with the very tip, but with the side.
Okay.
What colors can we use for shadows? Purples, blues?
It depends on the subject. I'm not using all the same shadow pigments for the whole all the subject. If the flower is violet, I will take violets a little bit darker for the shadow. If the subject is red, I will take reds darker or paint extra layer. I will not be using some kind of gray or blues in the shadows. It depends on the subject. It's not the same pigments for the all shadow areas. It really depends. When you are looking on the subject, you, for example, I will show you this. I'm planning to, I'm not sharing screen, sorry. So here is the hibiscus I'm planning to paint. It is It is so vibrant. It's so
Color
saturated.
is that?
It's beautiful. But as I look,
Mm.
it is pink and very bright violet with pink. I will be using red violet, Mijello pigment. And here in the shadows, I can see that it's all the same. It's not like there are some kind of blues or grays. It's also the same color as it is here, only more layers.
Okay.
This area right over here, for example, I'm just like giving you 5 layers, but this one here is 10 layers. The same color mix, the same color mix. Or if you want to go at the very end, a little bit more darker, more contrasty, maybe in this case, I will add pearl and violet to make it even more
Okay.
darker. These veins make more darker. This middle part, make it more contrasty. And this area right over here that the sun is shining through these petals, it's clear pink, super pink color.
Opera rose.
Opera rose, perfect. Opera rose will do a very good job here. And here it is more paler and cooler, you see, as well as here. But this is very warm and bright, and the sun is shining through those petals and gives even here are even some yellows. Right
Yes, I see
there.
yellow.
Yellows, yeah, but this is very pale pink, cooler pink. There are some blues here, right over here, and also here we can see, oh, here are blue.
So that's February.
As you can see, so this one hibiscus, but a lot of things to see, to consider, to learn. Yeah, this is very interesting. So when we are talking about the shadows, we are looking at the particular subject that we are planning to paint. There are not some one unique universal pigment to use for the shadows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you have a recommendation for a small eradicator brush?
Small. What do you mean?
Well, several months ago in one of your live
This one?
feedback, you used an eradicator brush. I didn't know. Yeah, I guess so. Is that the one you used? Yeah, it was several months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Where did you get that?
this one I got from a local art shop, but it
Oh,
almost any art supply shop will have it. It's synthetic brush, completely flat, quite stiff, because so it can erase some things. And yeah, it's super where I can,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's completely flat,
Yeah.
stiff, and synthetic. That's the main
Okay.
things for it.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks.
this upper part, this where I can show you,
Very short.
it's very straight.
Yeah. Straight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, okay. I have a question about how to make a distinction between the warm and cool reds and the blues, because I when I want to put some warm red in front, sometimes I go wrong and I put a cool red in front and it doesn't look nice. How do I make this distinction?
For example, reds, nice practice. You take any piece of paper. You take all your reds and all your blues. First, you need to analyze which reds are cool and which reds are warm. Then you will start to more think which pigment to take. For example, alizarin crimson is quite cool pigment. Placed together with Sennelier red or cadmium red, that cadmium or Sennelier red will be much warmer. But if we place alizarin crimson together with opera rose, I think opera rose will be much cooler and alizarin crimson will be warmer. But to make alizarin crimson warmer, we can add yellow, and then alizarin crimson will become warmer. It all depends how are you placing two pigments right beside them and making one cooler and one warmer. If you add a little bit to the same, for example, alizarin crimson, a little bit of blue, it will instantly become much cooler.
Cooler.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I know it's relative, but if I put
Yeah.
my reds next to each other, I find it hard to distinct, you know. I know the cooler reds, they are bluer, they have a bluer
pinker,
hue.
bluer, yes, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, yeah, well, guess I have to put them all on paper and
Yeah, especially to analyze the pigments that you have. Yes, so you
yes,
know, and paint them side by side, compare them, add a little bit of yellow to some red and see how it changes, because yellow will make it warmer instantly. It will make
Okay.
it more brighter, more warmer. And yeah, but if you add pink or if you add blue to your reds, it will become cooler. The same one pigment can change instantly with this temperature. Even the Sennelier red can become cooler if we will add a little bit of blues to that. But it's very warm pigments. Sennelier red or cadmium red, they are super warm pigments.
Okay, thank you.
And with blues, they are trickier. For example, not so many flowers are blue or subject that we are painting are blue, but we how can make blue warmer or cooler? Again, we are comparing the same pigment when we are adding a little bit of maybe red, a little bit of more even carefully yellow, not to make it green, but to make it warmer. We are adding with the little touches. The same blue can become warmer or stay cooler.
But you know what I mean? I have a couple of Winsor & Newton reds.
Yeah.
And if I put them next to each other, I still find it hard to see which one contains more blues.
Yeah.
You know, which one is cooler and which one is warmer.
Then if you, for example, if you are painting something and you are taking Winsor red, for example, it's also quite warm pigment.
That's warm. Yes,
Yeah, it's
I
warm.
noticed. Yeah.
But if you try to add blue to it, and you will see that you can make, and then color Winsor red and together Winsor red with a little bit of blue pigment, and you will see that they are changing in the color temperature. Don't add too much blue, but slightly, or pink.
Yes.
You can add permanent rose if you have to that Winsor red, and you will notice it will become cooler compared to simple Winsor red.
All right. Okay. I will try that out.
If you don't see straight away which pigment is cooler, lighter, try to add or yellow or blue and see how the temperature changes and the difference.
Okay.
Hope it helps.
Thanks.
If it,
Yes.
sorry, if it helps, I'm an interior designer and I had forgotten color theory and I had trouble with warms and cool tones and I had to play with colors again. So I did this.
Yes, yes. I will make it a little bit.
Yeah.
I
That's
did this
amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I can visualize. Because it's easy to see Christine. Oh, she takes a little bit of Indian yellow and a little bit of ultramarine, and she makes a wonderful green. But then I will forget how to make the green.
Yeah,
But I needed to remember or stick it in my mind.
mhm,
Just not to rely always on looking
yeah,
at a video. If I
Yeah.
wanted to paint on my own, to know which pigment to
yes,
take. If I so I started to to have color theory again. So I took a color wheel. I did a color wheel, yellow, red, blue,
mhm,
and I painted the thing. And I took all my colors that I
Yeah.
had. And I went, how to explain my English right now? It's too early. Um, all the colors that tend to go to yellow
yes,
or to are warmer,
mhm, mhm,
and the ones that tend to go to the blues
yes,
are cooler.
yeah.
So that's your answer there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, play with color mixes. Every time you're not in the mood to paint something particular or some, I don't know, subject, leaf, petal, if you're not in the mood, play with watercolor mixes. That will help you to see more colors, understand color mixes, make color wheels, color charts, and the more you will do it, the more you will get to know the pigments that you have and the colors you can mix from your pigments. You are quite right, Maria. Don't rely all the time on the tutor, or the tutorial, how the pigments are mixed. So you can see from your own which pigments or which mixes you want to use. Before even starting to paint, open the reference and ask yourself which would you use pigment and which pigments you would mix together to make that color tone. Ask more questions for yourself. Try to think before even starting the tutorial.
And because I have Daniel Smith, you have
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah, yeah.
kinds of all kinds of paints, and I am not going to buy
Yes,
another brand. So when you are mentioning color in another brand name, now I know which color are you using. I don't have to break my mind to figure it out like I
Yeah.
was at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, but it all comes with practice. It all comes with practice, and I always encourage, don't run to the shop and instantly buy new pigment that the teacher is using. Just keep practicing and trying to mix on your own with the pigments that you have.
I love this Zoom. I've learned so much on this Zoom, early Zoom.
Early Zoom. Good, good. That is so good. The more questions you will ask, the more you will learn, because I don't maybe instantly know what to tell. And but the more you are asking, the more I will explain and show you and tell you. Okay, no more questions.
Thank you very much. It was very helpful.
Thank
Have a
you,
good-
ladies. Thank you. And see you in my next tutorials and in the next
Yes.
Zoom.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.